Think about the city you live in, or one you know well, the streets you walk, the buildings you pass every day. What if I told you that beneath those familiar sidewalks and structures, there lies another city entirely? A hidden world of ancient roads, abandoned homes, and lost stories, all preserved just out of sight, waiting to be rediscovered. This isn't the stuff of fantasy or film, it's real, and it's happening beneath modern towns all across the globe. We're talking about ghost cities, layered civilizations buried by time, nature, and human progress, resting silently below the surface of our everyday lives. It's one of history's most captivating mysteries, how entire societies could vanish from view, only to be concealed under newer generations of buildings and streets. In some places, you're literally walking on top of forgotten temples, buried marketplaces, or even whole neighborhoods that once thrived with life. From the legendary depths beneath Rome, where imperial ruins lie stacked like pages in a book, to the astonishing multi-level metropolises of Turkey, these ghost cities challenge everything we assume about the places we call home. They remind us that history isn't just behind us, it's also beneath us. In this video, we're going to dig into how these layered urban civilizations came to be, what forces both natural and human sealed them away, and why they continue to capture our imagination today. We'll explore how archaeologists uncover these worlds without disturbing the modern life above, and what these time capsules reveal about human ambition, adaptation, and resilience. By the end, you won't look at your own city the same way again. You might just find yourself wondering what secrets are hidden right under your feet. So let's begin this journey into the ghost cities beneath our modern towns. Think of the most vibrant, modern city you know, a place alive with the energy of today, where glass towers gleam and traffic hums along bustling avenues. Now picture that same city not as a single entity, but as a collection of moments frozen in time, stacked one atop the other like pages in an ancient book. This is the essence of an urban palimpsest. The term itself comes from the world of medieval manuscripts, where scribes would scrape away old text from parchment to write something new, yet faint traces of the original would often remain visible beneath the surface. In exactly the same way, our cities are living manuscripts with the stories of past generations still etched into their foundations, waiting for us to read between the lines. This layered growth isn't accidental. It's a testament to practical human ingenuity across the centuries. Imagine a community centuries ago, standing amidst the rubble of an old structure after an earthquake or a fire. Clearing every single stone by hand would be a monumental, back-breaking task. So instead, they leveled what was left, packed it down, and used that solid, ready-made foundation to build anew. It was a matter of efficiency and economy. Why search for a new building site when the old one is perfectly situated, perhaps near a river or on a defensible hilltop, and already has sturdy walls half buried in the earth? This recycling of space happened again and again, with each generation adding its own layer to the story. But it wasn't just convenience that created these hidden worlds. Natural forces played a massive role, often acting as a silent partner in this process of concealment. Rivers like the Tiber in Rome or the Cayster in Turkey would flood, depositing layers of rich silt that gently buried entire neighborhoods. In other regions, wind-blown sand or dust from arid landscapes would slowly accumulate, steadily rising around buildings until they were completely submerged. In some cases, like with the volcanic ash that sealed Pompeii, catastrophe acted as a perfect preservative, freezing a city in a single moment and allowing future generations to build right over it, completely unaware of the snapshot in time lying just beneath their feet. This concept fundamentally challenges our modern perception of cities as permanent, finished places. We tend to see a street or a building as a fixed point, but urban palimpsests reveal that our landscapes are in a constant, slow-motion state of flux. A modern apartment block might stand directly over a Victorian factory, which was itself built atop a medieval merchant's home, which rests on the cracked stones of a Roman wall. This vertical timeline offers an unparalleled window into the past, allowing archaeologists to literally peel back the layers of history and see how trade, diet, fashion, and even technology evolved from one era to the next, all within the same few square meters of Earth. And nowhere is this concept of the urban palimpsest more vividly brought to life than in the Eternal City itself. Rome isn't just built on history, it is quite literally constructed from it, a living, breathing monument to its own layered past. To walk through Rome today is to stroll across a vast, hidden landscape. Just beneath the pavement, under the wheels of Vespers and the footsteps of tourists, lies an entire other city, a silent, sprawling ghost of the ancient empire, complete with its forgotten temples, elegant villas, and cobbled streets that haven't felt the sun in over 1,000 years. This isn't a metaphor, it's a physical reality. The modern city averages about 10 to 15 meters above the classical street level, meaning that the Rome of the Caesars is buried under centuries of sediment, debris, and deliberate reconstruction, waiting patiently in the dark. The most stunning example of this vertical timeline is the Basilica of San Clemente, a site that feels less like a single building and more like a historical elevator descending straight through time. You enter at street level into a beautiful, ornate church from the 12th century with its soaring arches and glittering mosaics. It feels ancient to us, but for Rome, it's practically modern. Descend a flight of stairs and the air grows cool and damp. You find yourself in a much older, lower-ceilinged basilica from the 4th century, its walls adorned with faded frescoes of early Christian saints. This was the original church, lost to memory and filled in with rubble to create a foundation for the new one above it. But the journey doesn't end there. A narrow staircase leads down even further into the deepest layer. Here you step out onto the rough floor of a 1st century Roman building, which housed a secret temple dedicated to the god Mithras. You can still see the altar where initiates participated in rituals, and the air is heavy with the weight of 2 millennia, and beneath even that, the echoing rumble of a Republican-era structure, possibly destroyed in the Great Fire of 64 AD, reminding us that the layering often goes deeper than we can ever truly know. This pattern repeats itself all across the city. The story of Rome is a story of practical reuse. When buildings collapsed from fire, earthquake, or simply age, the rubble was rarely carted away. It was too immense a task. Instead, it was leveled and built upon. The great Roman forums, the heart of public life in the empire, were slowly buried by this process and then built over during the Middle Ages and Renaissance. It was only through extensive archaeological excavation that these civic spaces were rediscovered, their grand columns and statues emerging from what had become cow pastures and later urban neighborhoods. Even the mighty Colosseum served as a convenient quarry for centuries, its stones ripped out to build palaces and churches, its underground passages completely filled in with earth and forgotten until modern digs revealed the complex hypogeum where gladiators and animals once waited. This continuous cycle of collapse, burial, and rebuilding on top shows a city in a constant dialogue with its own history, never truly erasing the past, but simply incorporating it into a new foundation. While Rome offers a masterclass in urban recycling, the ancient city of Ephesus on the coast of Turkey presents a different, yet equally dramatic, story of layered history, one written not just by human hands but by the relentless forces of nature itself. Here, the process of burial was more passive, a slow motion drowning in silt and sand that preserved a sprawling metropolis like a bug in amber, protecting it for centuries until archaeologists could gently brush away the earth to reveal its lost glory. Ephesus wasn't just built over, it was gently smothered and forgotten, allowing for an unparalleled preservation of its many lives, from a powerful Greek port to a glittering Roman capital and a resilient Byzantine stronghold. The city's fate was sealed by its own geography. Founded as a Greek Ionian colony, its immense wealth and strategic importance came from its position as a premier harbor on the Aegean Sea. But that very source of its prosperity, the Cayster River, would ultimately be its undoing. For centuries, the river carried rich soil down from the hills, steadily depositing it into the bay. Slowly, inexorably, the coastline began to advance. What was once a deep-water port became a swampy marsh, then solid, dry land. As the harbor silted up, trade routes shifted, the city's economic lifeblood ebbed away, and Ephesus was gradually abandoned, its magnificent buildings left to the elements. This natural landfill operation, happening over hundreds of years, gently buried the city under meters of protective earth, shielding it from the worst ravages of time and looters. This slow burial created a pristine time capsule, and excavations have peeled back these layers to reveal a breathtaking cross-section of ancient urban life. Walking its marble-paved streets today, you are traversing the Roman era, with the magnificent library of Celsus standing as a testament to its intellectual ambition, and the vast great theater capable of holding 25,000 spectators. But dig a little deeper, and you find the Greek foundations, the older temples and agoras that the Romans themselves built upon. Deeper still are traces of even earlier settlements, a physical manifestation of the city's long and complicated pedigree. Nowhere is this layered daily life more intimately revealed than in the stunning terrace houses, often called the houses of the rich. These were not grand public monuments but the private residences of Ephesus's elite, built into the slope of a hill. When the city declined and was abandoned, these homes were completely filled in with silt and debris, creating an airtight seal that protected their incredible interiors for nearly 2 millennia. Excavating them was like opening a door that had been closed for centuries. Inside, archaeologists found walls adorned with vibrant frescoes depicting mythological scenes, philosophers, and intricate geometric patterns that retained their original brilliant colors. The floors were covered in sophisticated mosaics so detailed and well-preserved they look as if they were completed yesterday. We can see the plumbing systems, the underfloor heating, the dining rooms, and the kitchens, offering an incredibly personal window into the domestic comforts and artistic tastes of a wealthy Roman family. What makes Ephesus so special is this continuity. It's not just one city frozen in a single moment like Pompeii. It's 1,000 years of continuous habitation, with each generation leaving its mark directly on top of the last. You can see the architectural evolution from Greek simplicity to Roman opulence to Byzantine adaptation, all on the same city block. This deep layering tells a story not of sudden catastrophe, but of slow change of a city that adapted, evolved, and eventually succumbed to the very environment that once made it great. It stands as a powerful reminder that sometimes the most profound preservation happens not through intentional effort, but through simple, patient neglect, allowing the earth itself to become the greatest museum curator of all. While Rome and Ephesus show us cities built in layers over time, Naples offers a different kind of hidden world, not just layers of rubble and soil, but a vast, intentionally carved underworld, a negative space to the city above. The relationship between modern Naples and its subterranean counterpart is less like pages in a book and more like a living, breathing organism with a complex circulatory system of tunnels and chambers that has been repurposed for millennia. This isn't merely a city built on its own past, it's a city that has continuously used its own foundations as a tool for survival. The story begins with the Greeks who first founded the settlement of Naples, or New City, in the 2nd millennium before the Common Era. They were the first engineers of the deep, quarrying the soft, volcanic tough stone from beneath their feet to build their city above ground. This created the initial network of caverns and passageways. But it was the Romans, master architects of infrastructure, who truly transformed these empty quarries into something magnificent. They linked and expanded these cavities to create a colossal aqueduct system, channeling fresh water from distant springs through miles of underground tunnels directly into the homes and public fountains of the ancient city. They also carved out vast, cathedral-like reservoirs known as cisterns, which could hold millions of liters of water, ensuring the city's survival through sieges and droughts. This underground world was not a secret or a forgotten relic. It was a critical, functioning organ of the city's daily life. For centuries, this relationship continued. But as the Roman Empire faded, so did the maintenance of this complex system. Earthquakes and landslides eventually blocked the aqueducts, and the knowledge of the vast network's full extent began to fade from public memory. The cavities were not filled in, they were simply forgotten, becoming a silent, dark echo of the bustling streets above. That is, until the city faced one of its greatest threats. During the relentless bombing campaigns of World War II, the people of Naples rediscovered their ancient birthright. These hollowed-out spaces, which had once brought life-giving water, were now their refuge from death from above. Over 40,000 Neapolitans descended into the darkness, carving out makeshift bedrooms, chapels, and even schools in the ancient cisterns and quarries. The very stones that had built their city now saved their lives, a powerful testament to how urban infrastructure can be adapted across the ages. Today, this incredible legacy is accessible through experiences like the Napoli Sotterranea Tour. To participate is to take a journey straight down through time. You descend a narrow, ancient staircase, the air cooling with every step, until you find yourself 40 meters below the modern city. The world of cars and crowds vanishes, replaced by an eerie silence broken only by the drip of water. You navigate narrow passageways, your guide illuminating the incredible Roman brickwork of the aqueducts. You can still see the ancient grooves left by the ropes of the Pizzari, the well workers who would climb down to maintain the system. In one chamber, you might see remnants from the war, a child's toy, a faded drawing on the wall. In another, you learn how these spaces were even used as secret passageways by royalty, and legend has it, by the infamous occultist Aleister Crowley. It's a physical manifestation of the city's resilience, a hidden diary where every era has left a distinct entry, from Greek pick marks to Roman hydraulic engineering to the fearful scratches of 20th century citizens seeking shelter. Naples teaches us that a ghost city isn't always about buildings buried and lost. Sometimes it's about spaces that are deliberately created, then forgotten, and then remembered again when they are needed most. It demonstrates a unique form of urban adaptability, where the hollowed-out underworld becomes a strategic asset, a bunker, a time capsule, and finally, a museum of its own incredible history. This deep, interconnected relationship between the city and what lies beneath it shows a different kind of palimpsest, one not of stacked ruins, but of a continuously repurposed void, proving that sometimes the most fascinating history isn't in what was built up, but in what was carved out. The story of Derenkuyu begins with the unique geology of Cappadocia itself. a landscape that looks more like a setting from a science fiction novel than a real place on Earth. Millions of years ago, violent volcanic eruptions blanketed the region in a thick layer of ash, which later solidified into a soft, porous rock called tuff. This material is a gift to a builder firm enough to hold its shape, yet soft enough to be carved with simple hand tools. It was this perfect geological canvas that allowed the ancient peoples of the region, possibly starting with the Phrygians over 2,800 years ago and later expanded by early Christians, to undertake one of the most ambitious construction projects in human history. They didn't build up, they dug down, creating not just a shelter, but an entire inverted metropolis. To call Derenkuyu an impressive feat of engineering is a staggering understatement. This is not a simple cave or a network of tunnels. It is a meticulously planned, vertically oriented city capable of sustaining life for thousands of people for months on end. Reaching a depth of approximately 85 meters, its 18 excavated levels are a labyrinth of purpose-built spaces. There were spacious living quarters for families, complete with carved-out beds, shelves, and common areas. There were stables to keep livestock safe and silent, wineries and oil presses for producing essential goods, and even dedicated churches with soaring ceilings and carved crosses adorning the walls, allowing the community to maintain its spiritual life while in hiding. Every single element was carved directly from the living rock, a testament to a society that planned not just for the next season, but for generations of security. But a city of that size, buried so deep, presents immediate and life-threatening problems: air, water, and security. The ancient engineers solved these with a brilliance that still astonishes experts today. A network of over 50 sophisticated ventilation shafts, some stretching all the way to the surface, provided a constant flow of fresh air to even the deepest chambers, preventing suffocation and allowing for cooking fires without filling the complex with smoke. They tapped into an underground river to provide a reliable, fresh water source through ingeniously designed wells, ensuring the community would not die of thirst during a long siege. And perhaps most famously, they devised a defense system of massive, rolling stone doors. These immense wheel-like discs of rock, each weighing up to half a ton, could be rolled across key passageways from the inside, effectively sealing entire sections of the city from any invaders who might discover an entrance. These doors had small, centered holes that could be used to spear attackers while remaining virtually impossible to break down from the outside. The primary driver for creating such an immense hidden refuge was sheer, stark necessity. Cappadocia's fertile land and strategic location made it a crossroads and a constant target. For centuries, its inhabitants faced wave after wave of invaders, from marauding armies to regional conflicts. The underground cities were the ultimate defense, a place where the entire population of a region could vanish without a trace. When scouts spotted a threat on the horizon, a signal would be given and a well-rehearsed exodus would begin. People, animals, and supplies would funnel into the hidden entrances, often concealed within the courtyards of surface homes or behind cleverly camouflaged rock faces. The great stone doors would be rolled shut, and the city above would appear utterly abandoned, leaving invaders baffled and unable to find the thousands of people living silently just beneath their feet. Derenkuyu and the dozens of other smaller underground cities connected to it by miles of tunnels represents a different kind of ghost city than the layered ruins of Rome or Ephesus. This was not a city that was gradually buried by time and silt. This was a city that was designed from the very beginning to be invisible, a secret sanctuary born from perpetual vulnerability. It stands as a powerful monument to human resilience and ingenuity, showing that when faced with existential threats, our ancestors didn't just hide, they built entire self-sufficient worlds in the darkness, ensuring their culture and their community would survive to see the sunlight again. Now, let's travel across the Atlantic to a site where the collision of two worlds created one of the most dramatic and poignant urban palimpsests on Earth, Mexico City. Here, the layers of history are not just a record of time passing, but a physical testament to conquest, destruction, and a profound cultural overlay that literally reshaped the landscape. Modern Mexico City, a sprawling megacity of 20 million people, rests upon the sunken heart of Tenochtitlan, the magnificent island capital of the Aztec Empire, a place that so stunned the Spanish conquistadors with its grandeur that they compared it to the mythical cities of Europe. But within a few short years, that awe turned to a determined campaign of obliteration, systematically burying one world to make way for another and creating a ghost city of unparalleled significance. The story of this burial begins with the very geography of the place. The Aztecs built their capital, Tenochtitlan, on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco, a brilliant feat of engineering connected to the mainland by great causeways. It was a city of canals and floating gardens, with gleaming white temples and pyramids rising from the water, a vision that Hernan Cortés and his men could scarcely believe. But after the fall of the Aztec Empire in 1521, the new Spanish rulers were determined to imprint their own culture, religion, and power onto the conquered land. Their method was direct and symbolic. They would not just build a new city, they would build it directly on top of the old one, using the rubble of the razed Aztec temples as the foundation for their Spanish cathedrals and palaces. This was more than just practical construction. It was a powerful act of domination, designed to subjugate the old gods and assert the new order physically and permanently. The most potent symbol of this deliberate entombment is the Templo Mayor, the great temple that was the sacred center of the Aztec universe. This was not a single structure, but a complex that grew layer by layer, as successive Aztec rulers would build a new, larger pyramid encasing the previous one, much like a set of Russian dolls. When the Spanish arrived, they completely destroyed the visible temple, toppling its twin shrines to the gods Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc. They then used the stones from that sacred site to build the massive metropolitan cathedral right next door, believing they had vanquished the old religion forever. For centuries, the Templo Mayor was lost, its exact location fading into legend, with the cathedral standing as an unchallenged monument to the New World Order. It wasn't until 1978, when electrical workers digging near the cathedral stumbled upon a massive, carved stone disc depicting the dismembered moon goddess Coyolxauhqui, that the ghost city beneath forcefully announced its presence. This incredible discovery triggered a major archaeological project that continues to this day, peeling back the layers to reveal the Templo Mayor's multiple construction phases, each a chapter in the Aztec Empire's expansion, with offerings of jade, seashells, and even the remains of sacrificial victims found precisely where they were left centuries ago. But the discoveries aren't confined to archaeological digs. In a city growing as rapidly as Mexico City, every shovel of dirt turned for a new subway line, sewer, or building foundation has the potential to hit history. The expansion of the city's metro system has become an inadvertent, massive archaeological survey, constantly unearthing the past. Workers tunneling for a new line have uncovered everything from the skull racks of Aztecs, Ompantli, to the foundations of colonial-era homes and the bones of long-extinct mammoths, all sharing the same soil. Each find forces a delicate dance between modern progress and historical preservation, a reminder that the entire modern infrastructure is built on a fragile and incredibly deep archive. The weight of that modern city itself has caused a unique problem. Mexico City is slowly sinking as the soft clay of the former lake bed compresses under the immense weight of concrete and steel. This subsidence is ironically helping to reveal more of the past as structures long buried shift and become exposed. This makes Mexico City's layered history uniquely visceral. It's not just about things being buried, it's about the past actively resisting being forgotten. The very ground is unstable, a physical manifestation of a history that was never truly settled. The cathedral sinks unevenly into the soft Aztec foundations beneath it, a constant, silent acknowledgement of the world it tried to replace. To walk from the Zocalo, the main square built over the Aztec ceremonial center, into the excavated site of the Templo Mayor is to experience this blurring of past and present more powerfully than almost anywhere else on Earth. You can stand in the shadow of the Spanish cathedral and look down into the excavated ruins of the Aztec temple that provided its stones, seeing the two empires literally side by side, one emerging from the rubble of the other. This is a ghost city that is not silent. It is a constant, visible dialogue between conqueror and conquered, between the world that was destroyed and the world that was built upon its bones. So after exploring these incredible examples, a question naturally arises. Why does this keep happening? Why do we so consistently build on top of the old instead of starting with a clean slate? The answer lies in a powerful combination of simple practicality, the relentless forces of nature, and the complex tides of human ambition. At its most basic level, building on ruins is an act of incredible efficiency. For much of human history, clearing away massive stone structures was a Herculean task, demanding vast amounts of labor, time, and resources that most societies simply didn't have. Imagine a medieval community standing amidst the collapsed columns and rubble of a Roman forum. The machinery to haul away thousands of tons of stone didn't exist. So instead of viewing it as a mess to be cleaned up, they saw a golden opportunity, a ready-made, incredibly stable foundation that was already perfectly level. It was far easier to fill in the gaps with more rubble, pack it down, and build directly on top, essentially using the past as a sturdy platform for the future. This recycled the best real estate, often in strategically valuable locations like hilltops for defense or riverbanks for trade, allowing for continuous habitation in the most desirable spots for millennia. Nature itself often lends a helping hand in this process of concealment, acting as a silent partner in preserving history. Rivers like the Tiber in Rome or the Cayster near Ephesus would periodically flood, gently depositing layers of rich silt over streets and plazas. In desert regions, relentless wind would blow sand and dust, steadily accumulating around buildings until they were completely submerged. Earthquakes could topple structures in seconds, creating instant layers of rubble that were simply too immense to move. In each case, these natural events effectively did the burying for the inhabitants, making the decision to build on top the most logical and least labor-intensive path forward. A city hit by a major quake needed to rebuild quickly for survival. They didn't have the luxury of archaeological excavation. This partnership with natural processes created perfect conditions for preservation, sealing artifacts and buildings in a protective shell that shielded them from weather, looters, and later construction, effectively creating unintentional time capsules. But the motivation isn't always just practical or passive. Sometimes it's profoundly symbolic. Throughout history, conquering powers have understood that to truly dominate a culture, you must overwrite its physical landscape. Building your new temple or palace directly on the foundation of the old one is a powerful statement of conquest and replacement. It's a way for a new regime to assert its authority, erase the symbols of the previous order, and repurpose the spiritual or political energy of a site for its own ends. We saw this vividly in Mexico City, where the Spanish used stones from the razed Templo Mayor to construct their cathedral, physically and spiritually demonstrating the triumph of Christianity over the Aztec gods. This intentional burial wasn't about convenience. It was about sending an unmistakable message of power and permanence to the conquered population. The old world was not just defeated, it was literally being used as the footing for the new one. This practice has paradoxically saved countless monuments, as the act of burying them protected them from being completely quarried away for other projects, preserving them for future generations to rediscover and reinterpret. It's a haunting paradox of history that some of our most complete windows into the ancient world were created by unimaginable tragedy. While we often think of natural disasters as purely destructive forces wiping cities off the map and erasing cultures, they have also served as the most meticulous preservationists, sealing entire communities in a protective shell and saving them from the far slower, more thorough erasure of time. A city abandoned and left to the elements will gradually be dismantled by weather, scavenged for building materials, and plowed under for new construction. But a city suddenly entombed by volcanic ash, submerged under lake sediment, or even buried in earthquake rubble is granted a kind of immortality, frozen in a single moment and hidden from the very human activities that would have otherwise destroyed it. The most famous example, of course, is the catastrophic eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. For the residents of Pompeii and Herculaneum, it was an apocalypse. For archaeologists 2,000 years later, it was a miracle of preservation. The volcano didn't just bury these bustling Roman towns, it performed a perfect, if horrifying, ecological lockdown. A superheated cloud of gas and ash surged down the mountain, instantly suffocating everything in its path and ensuring that people and animals were killed so quickly that they were captured in their final poses of life. Then a relentless rain of pumice and ash fell for days, burying the cities under many meters of volcanic material. This airtight seal protected the towns from oxygen, moisture, and looters, creating an incredibly detailed time capsule. The ash hardened around organic materials like wooden furniture, loaves of bread, and even the bodies of the victims, which decayed over centuries, leaving perfect hollows in the hardened rock. It was these voids that 19th-century archaeologists learned to fill with plaster, creating the heart-wrenching casts of the volcano's victims that make the site so powerfully human today. We don't just see the buildings of Pompeii, we see the graffiti on its walls, the food carbonized in its ovens, and the jewelry left behind, offering an intimate, unstaged snapshot of Roman daily life that no history book could ever provide. But volcanoes are not the only agents of this paradoxical preservation. Earthquakes, while devastating, often create the foundational layers for future cities in a process known as seismic recycling. A powerful quake can level a city in minutes, leaving a chaotic blanket of rubble and debris. For the survivors, faced with the monumental task of rebuilding their lives, clearing every single block of stone was an impossible undertaking. The most practical solution was to simply level the ruins and build anew on top of the now elevated and stabilized platform. The ancient city of Antioch, one of the largest and most important cities of the Roman Empire, experienced this cycle repeatedly. Struck by a series of massive earthquakes, the city was rebuilt upon its own ruins multiple times, each seismic event adding another layer to the urban palimpsest. The new city streets would be laid out directly over the collapsed rubble of the old, raising the ground level with each successive disaster. This process didn't just preserve the past, it literally elevated the future, creating the telltale mounds, or tells, that mark so many ancient sites in seismically active regions. Floods and sedimentation tell a quieter but no less effective story of preservation. Unlike the violent, instant burial of a volcano, this is a slow, gentle process of concealment. The ancient Mesopotamian city of Ur, home of the biblical patriarch Abraham, was not destroyed in a cataclysm. Instead, it was gradually abandoned as the Euphrates River shifted its course over centuries. Wind-blown sand and river silt slowly drifted over its mighty ziggurat and residential quarters, burying it under layers of protective soil. This gradual entombment shielded its magnificent royal tombs, with their treasures of gold and lapis lazuli, and its clay tablet archives from erosion and looting, allowing them to be discovered millennia later in near-pristine condition. This same process unfolded in Egypt, where the shifting sands of the desert swallowed temples and tombs, guarding them for thousands of years until modern excavators carefully brushed the sand away. This dual role of natural disasters, as both destroyer and guardian, forces us to reframe our understanding of these events. While they represent an ending for the people who lived through them, they also represent a beginning for future historians. They act as a reset button that inadvertently presses the save function, protecting these sites from the continuous cycle of urban renewal, recycling, and outright demolition that would have inevitably erased all but the most monumental architecture. Without Vesuvius, Pompeii's wooden shop counters and fragile garden fences would have rotted away to nothing. Without the repeated earthquakes, the everyday layers of Antioch's history would have been scavenged and lost. Without the slow, silting rivers, the delicate artifacts of Ur would have turned to dust. These catastrophic events, in their terrifying finality, gave these cities a second life, allowing them to tell their stories across the centuries in a way that their peacefully abandoned neighbors never could. So how do we peer into these hidden worlds without simply tearing up entire city blocks? The answer lies in a sophisticated toolkit of modern archaeological techniques that have transformed the field from one of guesswork and chance into a precise scientific discipline. It's a world of non-invasive sensing and meticulous analysis, allowing researchers to create detailed maps of the underground before a single shovel ever breaks the soil. At the forefront of this technological revolution is ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, a method that works much like ultrasound for the Earth. Archaeologists slowly push a cart equipped with a radar antenna over a site, sending high-frequency radio pulses down into the ground. These pulses bounce back when they hit something with a different density, like a buried wall, a floor, or even an empty tomb, and a computer translates those returning signals into a detailed three-dimensional map of the subsurface. It's an incredibly powerful way to survey a large area quickly and identify promising targets for further investigation, all while leaving the ground completely undisturbed. From the skies above, another revolutionary technology is revealing lost cities on a grand scale, LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. This involves mounting a laser scanner on an airplane or drone and flying it over a landscape, often one obscured by dense jungle or forest. The laser pulses penetrate the smallest gaps in the canopy, bouncing off the ground below and returning to the sensor. By measuring the time it takes for each pulse to return, a computer can strip away the vegetation digitally, revealing the bare earth and any subtle, human-made features etched upon it. The ghostly outlines of ancient roads, irrigation canals, plazas, and building foundations that are completely invisible from the ground. This technology has been nothing short of miraculous, leading to the rediscovery of vast urban networks in places like Cambodia, where the sprawling metropolis of Angkor was found to be far larger than anyone imagined, and in Central America, where lost Mayan cities are still being found hidden beneath the jungle's green veil. But once a promising feature is identified, the real detective work begins with the most fundamental and careful method of all: stratigraphic excavation. This isn't about digging holes, it's about reading the soil itself. archaeologists painstakingly remove soil in thin, horizontal layers, documenting everything they find in relation to its precise depth and position. The key principle here is that the deeper you go, the older the material, creating a vertical timeline known as the law of superposition. By carefully drawing and photographing each distinct layer or stratum, they can build a precise chronology of the site. A piece of Roman pottery found in one layer and medieval coins in the layer above it tells a clear story of which civilization came first. This context is everything. An artifact without its precise location is just a lonely object in a museum case, but an artifact found in situ, surrounded by the charcoal from a cooking fire and the broken tools of a daily trade, becomes a vibrant data point in reconstructing a whole way of life. This scientific approach is what separates modern archaeology from the treasure hunting of the past. Every bucket of soil might be sieved to recover tiny seeds, which can tell us about ancient diets and agriculture. Samples of charcoal or bone can be sent for radiocarbon dating to get a solid, scientific age. Soil chemistry can be analyzed to reveal where livestock were kept or where metals were worked. It's this holistic, multifaceted methodology that transforms a random collection of old stones and broken pottery into a coherent, compelling historical narrative. We're no longer just finding things, we're listening to the stories they have to tell about cultural shifts, economic trade networks, technological advancements, and how people adapted to environmental changes over centuries. Each carefully excavated layer adds another sentence, another paragraph, to the grand story of human civilization written in the earth beneath our feet. Uncovering these lost worlds is a thrilling scientific pursuit, but it's far from a simple dig in a remote field. Urban archaeologists operate in one of the most challenging environments imaginable, the living, breathing, and densely packed modern city. Their work is a constant high-wire act, balancing the desire to reveal the past with the practical realities of the present. Every excavation is a delicate dance conducted not in an open desert, but underneath active roadways between buzzing fiber optic cables and around the deep foundations of skyscrapers that literally rest upon the history they are trying to study. This isn't just about careful brushing. It's about sophisticated engineering and complex logistics just to access a site without bringing the city above to a grinding halt. The single greatest challenge is the sheer physical obstacle of modern infrastructure. Imagine trying to excavate a Roman bathhouse when it's located directly beneath a major 6-lane highway, or carefully uncovering a medieval cemetery that lies in the path of a new subway tunnel. Archaeologists can't simply shut down entire sections of a metropolis. They have to develop ingenious workarounds. This often means conducting what are known as watching briefs, where archaeologists are present during construction projects, frantically documenting and recovering any finds the moment they are exposed by a bulldozer's blade before they are lost forever. In other cases, they employ tunneling techniques, digging narrow, reinforced shafts sideways from existing basements or down from inside buildings to reach deeper, older layers, a painstaking process that moves inch by inch to avoid collapsing the world above them. Every scoop of dirt removed has to be hauled up through these confined spaces, and every measurement must be meticulously recorded under immense time pressure. Beyond the physical constraints, there is a relentless financial and political battle to be fought. Securing funding for urban archaeology is notoriously difficult. Unlike a research dig in a remote location with a clear academic goal, an urban dig is often reactive, triggered by private development. Convincing a corporate developer to pause a multi-million-dollar project and pay for an archaeological survey requires powerful legal protections and persuasive arguments about cultural value. arguments that often fall on deaf ears when balanced against budgets and deadlines. Even when laws mandate an archaeological assessment, the funding is often minimal and the time frame absurdly short. This creates a scenario where developers may see history as a costly delay, and politicians, eager for new jobs and tax revenue from new buildings, may be tempted to sideline preservation in favor of progress. The result is that countless irreplaceable sites are likely destroyed every year, paved over by parking garages and high-rises before anyone even knows they are there. Yet, against these overwhelming odds, urban archaeologists persist with a powerful sense of mission. They are not just digging for artifacts, they are advocates and activists for the memory of the city itself. Their work reclaims the narratives of ordinary people, the taverns where they drank, the homes where they raised families, the workshops where they plied their trade, stories that are rarely written in history books but are written in the soil. Every small discovery, a child's toy or an immigrant's distinctive pottery, adds a vital thread to the rich tapestry of the city's identity. By fighting to preserve these layers, they argue that a city's depth of history is as crucial to its character as its modern skyline, that knowing where you came from is essential to understanding where you are going. Their success is measured not just in magnificent museum exhibits, but in the integration of history into the modern landscape, a preserved section of a Roman wall visible in a bank's basement, or a glass floor in a shopping center that looks down onto ancient foundations, creating a daily public dialogue between the past and the present. Think of an archaeological dig not just as a hole in the ground, but as a time machine that moves vertically, with each layer of soil representing a distinct chapter in a city's biography. These strata are far more than simple layers of dirt and debris. They are a physical archive of cultural transformation, holding the tangible evidence of how a society's very identity shifted over generations. The most profound changes are often written in stone and brick. A single building's foundation might tell a multi-layered story. Excavators might uncover the mosaic floor of a Roman villa dedicated to a pagan god, only to find that its walls were later repurposed to support a simple early Christian chapel, whose own ruins were then quarried for stones to build a medieval fortress. This architectural palimpsest shows us that cultural change isn't always about erasure. It's frequently about adaptation, where the old is literally built into the foundations of the new. This evolution of sacred spaces provides some of the most striking evidence of deep cultural and religious shifts. Across the former Roman Empire, from Britain to Syria, you can trace the spread of Christianity not just through texts, but through the physical transformation of cityscapes. The great temple of Aphrodite in the city of Aphrodisias, Turkey, stands as a powerful example. For centuries, it was a center of pagan worship, but as Christianity gained influence, the temple wasn't simply torn down. Instead, its sturdy walls were incorporated into a new, large Christian basilica. The ancient columns of the pagan temple were reused to line the nave of the church, and the sacred stones once carved with images of Aphrodite were flipped over and recut with Christian crosses. This wasn't just pragmatic recycling, it was a symbolic act of conquest and conversion, a physical declaration that the new faith was both supplanting and encompassing the old order. Moving beyond architecture, the smallest, most mundane objects found in these layers can reveal vast networks of trade and economic connection. A single shard of pottery might seem insignificant, but to an archaeologist, it's a data point on a global map. The discovery of Indian peppercorns in a 1st century Roman villa, or fragments of Chinese silk in an Egyptian burial, speaks to trade routes that spanned continents long before the modern era. Coins are particularly eloquent time capsules. Finding a hoard of Byzantine gold coins suddenly cut off by a layer of destruction debris can help date a catastrophic event like a siege or an earthquake with remarkable precision. Furthermore, the changing imagery on coins, shifting from the profile of a pagan emperor to a Christian cross or an Islamic inscription, provides a clear, government-sanctioned timeline of ideological change, showing how rulers communicated new loyalties and beliefs to their entire population. Beyond grand politics and global trade, these layers offer an intimate window into the daily lives of ordinary people, revealing evolving social hierarchies and domestic technologies. The contents of a trash pit sealed under a new floor can tell us more about a family's diet than any historical record. The bones of butchered animals show what people were eating, while the shells of imported oysters or the seeds of exotic fruits hint at a family's wealth and status. In one layer, you might find simple iron tools for farming. In a younger layer above, you might uncover more sophisticated implements, perhaps made from superior steel acquired through new trade networks, indicating a technological advancement that made labor more efficient. The gradual appearance of glass window panes in houses, or the shift from open hearths to more efficient enclosed ovens, charts a slow but steady improvement in domestic comfort and ingenuity across the centuries. By meticulously reading this vertical timeline, historians can do more than just list events. They can trace the subtle flow of ideas, aesthetics, and influences across time and geography. The stratigraphy of a city like Istanbul, formerly Constantinople, reveals a breathtaking cultural fusion. In the famous Hagia Sophia, you can see the layers of history in its very fabric. The grandeur of the 6th century Byzantine Christian basilica, with its stunning mosaics of Christ and the emperors, was later overlaid with Islamic elements after the Ottoman conquest, including minarets, a mihrab, and enormous calligraphic roundels. The building itself became a physical dialogue between two great faiths and empires, its layers not representing a clean break but a complex, ongoing conversation. This ability to see cultural change not as an abstract concept, but as a series of physical actions, a wall modified, a coin minted, a new style of pottery adopted, gives us a profoundly concrete understanding of how human societies are never static. They are constantly in motion, borrowing, adapting, resisting, and evolving, leaving behind a stacked record of their journey for us to uncover, one careful layer at a time. While the historical and cultural value of these rediscovered cities is immeasurable, their unearthing often sets in motion a powerful economic engine that can transform entire regions. Imagine a small, quiet town whose main industry has faded over the years, perhaps a former farming or mining community facing a gradual decline. Then, a discovery beneath a local farmer's field. Archaeologists uncover the gates to an entire underground city, or construction for a new road reveals the intricate mosaic floor of a Roman villa. Suddenly, this quiet town is on the map, not just nationally but globally. This isn't just an academic curiosity, it's an economic earthquake. The most immediate and visible impact is a massive surge in tourism. Almost overnight, the area becomes a pilgrimage site for history enthusiasts, curious travelers, and school groups, all drawn by the allure of walking through a lost world. This influx of visitors creates a powerful ripple effect throughout the local economy. It starts with the need for infrastructure. Hotels, bed and breakfasts, and restaurants spring up to accommodate the new guests, creating a wide range of jobs from management and chefs to housekeeping and waiting staff. Local artisans and shopkeepers find a new market for their goods, selling replicas of discovered artifacts, history books, local crafts, and souvenirs. Tour buses need drivers, sites need ticket sellers and tour guides, and new museums require curators, security personnel, and maintenance staff. This creates a diverse ecosystem of employment that often reaches far beyond the site itself, benefiting the entire surrounding community. The revenue generated from ticket sales, which can be substantial for major sites, is often reinvested directly back into further excavation, preservation efforts, and the local community through grants and public works, creating a virtuous cycle of investment and improvement. We can see this transformative power in action at places like Pompeii in Italy, which draws well over 2 million visitors each year, or the underground city of Derenkuyu in Turkey, which has become a cornerstone of the Cappadocia region's massive tourism industry. The economic stability provided by this constant stream of global interest allows these communities to thrive. This international spotlight also attracts another crucial form of capital: funding. Major discoveries often garner attention from global heritage organizations, universities, and even private donors, who provide grants and donations specifically for preservation and research. This external funding not only helps protect the site, but also creates high-skilled jobs for archaeologists, conservators, and scientists, turning the area into a hub for academic excellence and cutting-edge research. However, this newfound prosperity comes with a significant and delicate responsibility. The very thing that draws people, the incredible, fragile authenticity of a 2,000-year-old site, is also its greatest vulnerability. An unchecked flood of tourists can be as destructive as any natural disaster. The cumulative effect of millions of footsteps can erode ancient stone pathways that have survived for millennia. The humidity from our breath, the oils from our hands resting on a fragile fresco, and even the subtle vibrations from constant foot traffic can slowly but surely degrade these irreplaceable treasures. The challenge, then, is not to keep people out, but to manage their access with intelligence and foresight. This means implementing sustainable tourism practices, such as timed ticketing to prevent overcrowding, building protective walkways and viewing platforms that keep visitors at a safe distance from delicate structures, and strictly enforcing rules against touching surfaces or straying from designated paths. The goal is a careful and continuous balancing act, making these wonders accessible and financially beneficial for the present, while ensuring they remain intact and awe-inspiring for the generations that follow. It is a testament to the idea that our shared human history is not just a cultural treasure to be studied, but a living, breathing asset that, when cared for with respect, can provide both knowledge and prosperity, weaving the economic future of a community directly into the preserved fabric of its past. But the act of uncovering these lost worlds is far more than a technical or scientific challenge. It is a deeply human endeavor that forces us to confront profound ethical questions. Who truly owns the past? Is it the archaeologists who unearth it, the governments on whose land it is found, or the distant museums that have housed its treasures for centuries? And perhaps more importantly, when we excavate, are we preserving history, or are we disturbing a sacred slumber? These are not abstract debates. They are urgent considerations that sit at the very heart of modern archaeology, shaping how, or even if, a site is explored. The thrill of discovery must always be tempered by a profound respect for the cultures and people whose stories we are handling. One of the most pressing ethical issues revolves around the repatriation of artifacts. For generations, the magnificent collections of major Western museums were built from objects acquired during colonial eras, often taken from their places of origin with little regard for the wishes of local populations. A sculpted head from a Mayan temple might now reside in a glass case in London, while a golden funerary mask from an African kingdom is displayed in Paris. To the museums, these are artifacts of global cultural heritage, but to the descendant communities, these are not mere objects. They are sacred ancestors, stolen cultural patrimony, and vital pieces of their living identity. The growing movement for repatriation argues that these items must be returned to their countries of origin, not as a loss to world culture, but as a restoration of dignity and a correction of historical wrongs. This process is complex, involving intricate legal and diplomatic channels, but it represents a crucial shift in acknowledging that the narrative of history should not be controlled solely by those who once collected it. This conversation becomes even more sensitive and sacred when excavation involves human remains. Uncovering a centuries-old grave can provide incredible scientific data about diet, disease, and migration patterns. But to many indigenous and descendant communities, these are not biological specimens. They are ancestors who are laid to rest with specific rituals and intentions. Disturbing them is seen as a profound desecration. Modern ethical archaeology demands a collaborative approach. This means that before any excavation of burial sites begins, archaeologists must engage with connected communities. In many cases, this has led to agreements to leave certain areas completely undisturbed, honoring the original purpose of the site as a final resting place. In other instances, it leads to reburial ceremonies after scientific study is complete, or to research being conducted under the guidance and supervision of community elders, ensuring that the work is done in a spirit of respect and partnership, not exploitation. Ultimately, this points toward the most significant evolution in archaeological ethics, the move from a model of extraction to one of collaboration. The old image of the lone archaeologist arriving in a remote location, digging up treasures, and shipping them back to a foreign institution is, rightly, becoming a thing of past. The new model recognizes that the local communities living near these sites are not merely bystanders. They are the most important stakeholders. They are the ones who will live with the consequences of excavation long after the archaeologists have published their papers and gone home. Ethical practice now insists on involving these communities from the very beginning, from the planning stages, through the excavation, to the interpretation and display of finds. This can mean training and employing local people on digs, ensuring economic benefits stay within the region, and creating museums and visitor centers that tell the story from a local perspective. This collaborative approach enriches the work immeasurably. Local knowledge can provide context that no outside expert could ever grasp: the meaning of a place name, an oral history passed down through generations, or the spiritual significance of a particular artifact. By weaving together scientific analysis with living cultural memory, we don't just get a more accurate historical picture, we get a more human one. It transforms archaeology from a one-sided act of discovery into a shared dialogue. It acknowledges that the layered cities beneath our feet do not belong to a dead past, but are part of a continuous story that extends into the present, and that the people most connected to that story must have a central voice in how it is told and preserved for the future. The game of uncovering these ghost cities is undergoing a revolution so profound it's changing the very nature of archaeology itself. We've moved far beyond the lone scholar with a trowel and a brush. Today's explorers wield an arsenal of non-invasive technologies that allow them to see through solid earth, dense jungle, and even deep water, mapping entire lost metropolises without ever breaking the ground. This shift from destructive digging to precise digital sensing is perhaps the most significant leap forward in the field in over a century, transforming a discipline of careful recovery into one of breathtaking, large-scale revelation. At the forefront of this revolution is LiDAR, or light detection and ranging. Imagine flying a specially equipped aircraft over a vast, impenetrable jungle canopy. The laser scanners on board fire millions of pulses of light per second toward the ground. While most of these pulses bounce off the tops of leaves and branches, a significant number find their way through tiny gaps in the vegetation, hit the solid ground below, and bounce back to the sensor. By meticulously measuring the time it takes for each pulse to return, a powerful computer can then digitally strip away every single tree, bush, and vine, revealing the naked earth beneath in stunningly high resolution. What emerges from this digital deforestation is nothing short of magical, the ghostly but perfectly clear outlines of a completely unknown city. Suddenly, you can see the grid of ancient streets, the raised platforms of grand plazas, the intricate network of irrigation canals, and the distinct mounds of crumbling pyramids, all of which have been hidden from human eyes for 1,000 years. This technology has completely rewritten the history of civilizations like the Maya, revealing that their urban centers in Guatemala and Mexico were vastly larger, more populous, and more interconnected than any historian had previously dared to imagine. But what about sites buried under urban sprawl or open fields, where there's no jungle to peel away? Here, ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, becomes the tool of choice. Think of it as giving the Earth a detailed CT scan. Archaeologists push a cart with a radar antenna over a site, and it sends high-frequency radio waves into the ground. These waves travel down until they hit something with a different density, a buried wall, a filled-in ditch, a stone foundation, and then bounce back to a receiver. By analyzing the strength and return time of these signals, the system builds a detailed three-dimensional map of the subsurface. It can distinguish between a natural rock and a worked stone, between a forgotten burial and a simple patch of hard clay. This allows researchers to pinpoint exactly where to dig, minimizing destructive and time-consuming trial trenches. It's how we can now look beneath the grassy fields surrounding Stonehenge and discover a vast landscape of hidden monuments and ritual structures, completely invisible from the surface, transforming a standalone monument into the centerpiece of a much larger sacred complex. The sheer volume of data these technologies generate is itself a new kind of challenge. A single LiDAR survey can produce terabytes of information, a digital haystack in which we're trying to find priceless archaeological needles. This is where another modern marvel comes into play: artificial intelligence. Researchers are now training AI algorithms to recognize the subtle signatures of human activity in this immense dataset. The AI can learn to distinguish the specific shape and pattern of a man-made causeway from a natural ridge, or identify the telltale rectangular footprint of a building foundation amidst a chaotic jumble of geological data. It can process in hours what would take a human team months of painstaking visual analysis, not to replace archaeologists, but to empower them by highlighting the most promising areas for further investigation. This predictive power is pushing the boundaries of discovery, allowing us to make educated guesses about where to look next on a landscape scale, turning random chance into a calculated search for our own history. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this technological revolution is its core principle of non-invasiveness. For centuries, archaeology was, by its very nature, a destructive science. To reach a deeper, older layer, you had to carefully dismantle and remove the layers above it. Now we can map a site in exquisite detail and leave it completely untouched for future generations. This is a crucial ethical advancement. It means that if we uncover a sacred burial ground or a fragile wooden structure, we can choose to study it with our sensors and then leave it respectfully in the ground, protected from exposure, looters, and the elements. We are no longer forced to choose between knowledge and preservation. We can now have both. These technologies allow us to be better stewards of the past, ensuring that the ghost cities beneath our feet can continue to hold their secrets safe until the day we have the wisdom and the means to understand them fully. While we often think of climate change in terms of its devastating future impacts, it is already acting as a powerful, if alarming, archaeological force, pulling back the curtain on lost worlds that have been hidden for millennia. The very processes that threaten our modern environment, rising temperatures, intense droughts, and melting ice, are simultaneously acting as agents of revelation, exposing ghost cities and ancient artifacts on a scale we've never seen before. This creates a paradoxical race against time, where each new discovery is also a desperate rescue mission, as scientists work to document and protect these fragile windows into the past before they vanish forever, this time for good. One of the most dramatic arenas for this change is in the world's high mountain ranges, where glaciers that have been frozen for thousands of years are now retreating at an astonishing rate. In the Alps, hikers and scientists are stumbling upon a treasure trove of organic materials that would have normally decayed to nothing, but were perfectly preserved in their icy time capsules. These aren't just stone tools. The melting ice is revealing incredibly personal items like leather clothing, wooden hunting bows, and even bundles of arrows still tied together with cordage, left behind by hunters and travelers over 5,000 years ago. Perhaps the most famous of these finds is Ötzi the Iceman, a Copper Age man whose body was revealed by a melting glacier in 1991, offering an unparalleled snapshot of life in 3300 BC. But beyond individual artifacts, the vanishing ice is exposing entire ancient pathways, like the Lurchen Pass in Switzerland, where the retreating ice has revealed a Roman-era road complete with artifacts, showing that these high mountain passes were busy trade routes long before modern tunnels were ever conceived. Each melt season now brings a new wave of finds, but with no deep freeze to rebury them, these organic materials are incredibly vulnerable, beginning to rot within months of exposure to sun and air. At the opposite end of the climate spectrum, severe and prolonged droughts are performing a similar trick with water instead of ice. As reservoirs and lakes around the world shrink due to rising temperatures and reduced rainfall, they are revealing the ghostly outlines of towns and communities that were intentionally submerged generations ago to create these bodies of water. In Europe, droughts have repeatedly lowered the water level of Spain's Valdecañas reservoir, exposing the stunning dolmen of Guadalperul, a prehistoric stone circle dubbed the Spanish Stonehenge, which had been underwater since 1963. Similarly, in the United States, droughts have caused water levels in Lake Mead to plummet, revealing the remains of St. Thomas, a Mormon settlement founded in 1865 and abandoned when the valley was flooded to create the Hoover Dam Reservoir in the 1930s. As the water recedes, the ghostly foundations of the town's schoolhouse, hotel, and homes re-emerge from the mud, along with more recent and grim discoveries like sunken boats and even human remains from the mobster era of Las Vegas. These resurrections are bittersweet. They offer a fascinating glimpse into a past that was sacrificed for modern progress, but their exposure also makes them immediately vulnerable to looters and souvenir hunters who descend on the sites before archaeologists can properly document them. This presents the central, heartbreaking dilemma of climate archaeology. Every discovery is an emergency. Unlike a planned excavation where a team can carefully control the environment and the pace of work, these climate-revealed sites demand an immediate response. An ancient wooden structure that survived for 4,500 years in a glacier can begin to warp, crack, and be colonized by fungi within a single season once it's exposed. A sunken village's mud brick walls, once protected by the gentle, anaerobic environment of a lake bed, can quickly crumble into dust when exposed to wind and sun. The moment these sites lose their protective climatic blanket, the clock starts ticking. Archaeologists are now forced into a new role as first responders, performing digital triage with drones and three-dimensional scanners to create a permanent record of a site before it disintegrates. The goal is often not full excavation. There simply isn't time or funding, but rather preservation through documentation, creating a high-resolution digital twin that can be studied long after the original has returned to dust or been reclaimed by the water. This urgency is compounded by the threat of looting. The same news reports that alert scientists to a new discovery also alert treasure hunters. Social media and online satellite imagery make it easier than ever for amateurs to locate and plunder these vulnerable sites, taking artifacts that are stripped of all context and meaning, effectively erasing the very history they were hoping to possess. A coin hoard ripped from a newly exposed riverbank might fund a vacation, but its loss to science means we may never understand the economic crisis that prompted someone to hide it there centuries ago. This creates an ethical and logistical nightmare, forcing archaeologists to work quickly, often in remote and challenging conditions, to beat both the elements and the looters to the punch. The unearthing of these climate ghosts is a powerful, tangible reminder that the past is not separate from our present. Our actions today are directly determining which pieces of history will survive for tomorrow, adding a profound layer of responsibility to the already immense challenge of understanding and mitigating climate change. There's something profoundly captivating about the idea that an entire world could be sleeping right under our feet, completely invisible to our daily routines. This isn't just an intellectual curiosity, it taps into something much deeper within our collective psyche, a primal fascination with the hidden and the unknown. We are drawn to secrets, to the possibility that the ordinary world we navigate every day is merely a surface layer, and that just below it lies a realm of forgotten stories and untold mysteries. This allure is the same engine that drives our love for treasure maps, detective stories, and tales of lost kingdoms like Atlantis or El Dorado. The ghost cities beneath our modern towns are a real-world manifestation of that ancient yearning, a tangible proof that the fantastic can be true. This deep-seated fascination is more than just a passing interest. It's a powerful emotional cocktail that blends mystery, adventure, and a poignant sense of connection. The mystery lies in the unanswered questions: who walked these buried streets? What were their lives like? Why was this place abandoned and forgotten? This sense of enigma invites us to become detectives of the past, piecing together clues from pottery shards, foundation stones, and ancient garbage to reconstruct a narrative. The adventure is in the exploration itself, the literal and figurative digging, the thrill of potentially uncovering something no one has seen for 1,000 years. It's a form of time travel that is accessible, real, and grounded in physical discovery. And finally, there's the connection, a humbling and powerful feeling of walking in the footsteps of those who came before us, of touching the same stones they touched, and realizing that our own modern city is simply the latest chapter in a story that began centuries or even millennia ago. This powerful emotional pull doesn't just stay in the realm of academic journals. It fuels a vast cultural ecosystem. Countless books and films, from the Indiana Jones series to modern documentaries and novels, draw directly on this allure, transforming archaeological pursuit into high adventure. This, in turn, drives a massive global tourism industry. People don't just want to read about Ephesus or walk through a museum. They want to descend into the underground cities of Cappadocia, to feel the cool, damp air of the Napoli sotterranea, and to stand in the shadow of the excavated Templo Mayor, feeling that visceral jolt of history right beneath the modern metropolis. This desire to experience these places firsthand is a testament to the power of seeing the hidden made visible, a need to connect with the past in a physical, tangible way. At its core, this fascination reflects a universal human trait, the desire to look beyond the obvious. It's the same impulse that makes a child wonder what's under a rock, or that makes us curious about the history of an old, abandoned house in our neighborhood. These buried cities are the ultimate expression of that curiosity, encouraging us to question the landscape we take for granted. They remind us that every empty field might hold a forgotten settlement, that a modern shopping district could be built over a medieval marketplace, and that the very ground we stand on is a repository of countless lives and stories. This perspective enriches our experience of the present, infusing our familiar surroundings with a depth and meaning we might otherwise miss. It transforms a simple stroll through a city from a mundane act into a potential act of imagination, where with every step we might be crossing the thresholds of invisible rooms and walking over the ghosts of ancient streets. While the ghost cities of Rome, Naples, and Mexico City each tell a powerful story, this phenomenon of layered living is truly a global tapestry, woven with threads of universal human instinct and brilliantly colored by local conditions. From the sun-baked tales of the Middle East to the stone-built metropolises of Europe and the sacred mounds of the Americas, every continent offers its own unique version of this hidden history, each one shaped by a fascinating interplay of local geography, available materials, and cultural imperatives. This global perspective reveals a stunning truth. While the specific reasons for building layer upon layer may differ, the underlying impulse to reuse, to adapt, and to build upon the past is a fundamental part of the human story everywhere. Consider the classic tell, a word derived from the Arabic for mound or hill. These are not natural formations, they are entirely man-made mountains of history, most commonly found across the arid landscapes of the Middle East and Central Asia. Their existence is a direct product of their primary building material, mud brick. In regions like Mesopotamia, where timber and stone were scarce, communities for millennia constructed their homes and walls from sun-dried bricks made of mud and straw. This material is excellent for building quickly and economically, but it has a relatively short lifespan, especially when exposed to the elements. A mud brick wall might last a generation or two before it begins to crumble and slump back into the earth. When this happened, or when a settlement was destroyed by conflict or fire, the practical solution was simply to level the rubble and build anew on top of the stable, compacted platform. Over centuries and even millennia, this cycle of construction, decay, and reconstruction caused the ground level to rise steadily, sometimes creating mounds tens of meters high, each layer encapsulating a distinct era of human occupation. The famous city of Jericho is a prime example, its tell containing evidence of over 20 successive settlements spanning 11,000 years, creating a vertical timeline of human civilization that is almost unimaginable in its depth. Now travel to Europe and you find a different kind of layering altogether. Here, in regions rich with quarries and forests, construction was often meant to last for the ages, using durable stone, brick, and timber. The ruins of these cities didn't simply melt back into the earth, they stood as stark, skeletal reminders of the past. This created a different kind of palimpsest, one not of gradual, sedimentary accumulation, but of dramatic reuse and incorporation. The Romans were masters of this, building their aqueducts, amphitheaters, and roads to withstand centuries. When later societies encountered these robust ruins, they didn't just build on them, they built with them. A perfect example is the city of Salamis on Cyprus, where powerful earthquakes toppled the magnificent Roman columns of its gymnasium and public baths. Instead of clearing the immense marble blocks, later Byzantine builders simply constructed their new homes and workshops right amongst the toppled ruins, using the fallen columns as ready-made foundations and door frames, creating a new city that was literally woven into the fabric of the old. This practice of spolia, the conscious reuse of older building materials for new constructions, was common across medieval Europe, turning a vanquished Roman temple into the foundation of a Christian church, not just for practicality, but as a potent symbol of a new world order built upon the bones of the old. Crossing the Atlantic, we find yet another expression of this layered impulse, deeply infused with spiritual and cosmological significance. In the Americas, many indigenous cultures engaged in a practice of ceremonial rebuilding. The great pyramid structures at places like Teotihuacan in Mexico or the mound builder sites in the Mississippi Valley were often not single construction projects, but living entities that were periodically renewed and enlarged. A ruling dynasty or a new era might be marked by the community literally encasing an existing temple within a larger, grander shell. This was more than just expansion. It was a form of ritual, a way of honoring and preserving the sacred power of the previous structure while simultaneously amplifying it. The Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan is believed to contain several older, smaller pyramids within it, like a set of nested boxes, each layer representing a different phase of devotion and political power. This creates a layered city that is fundamentally different from the tells of the Middle East or the reused stones of Europe. Here, the layers are intentional acts of veneration, a physical manifestation of a culture's connection to its own cyclical view of time and its sacred landscape. When we place these different models side by side, the comparisons become incredibly illuminating. They show us that the why behind these layered cities varies dramatically. In the arid tells, it was primarily a story of material science and pragmatic recycling. Mud brick decays, so you build on the rubble. In stone-built Europe, it was often a tale of seismic catastrophe followed by practical adaptation, or of symbolic conquest through architectural reuse. In the Americas, the layering was frequently a deliberate, ceremonial act, connecting the present to the past in a continuous sacred cycle. Yet, despite these different motivations, the common thread is a profound resourcefulness and a deep connection to place. Whether driven by necessity, opportunity, or reverence, human societies across the globe and across time have consistently chosen to engage with their own history, not by wiping the slate clean, but by making it the foundation for their future. This global perspective doesn't just show us how these cities were built. It reveals a fundamental aspect of who we are, a species that is always building forward, but almost always while standing on the shoulders and the ruins of our own past. So where does this incredible field go from here? The future of urban archaeology is not about bigger shovels or deeper holes. It's about smarter, more collaborative, and more inclusive ways of engaging with the past. We're moving toward a future that seamlessly integrates cutting-edge technology with deep community partnerships and a truly interdisciplinary mindset, transforming how we discover, interpret, and most importantly, share these hidden worlds. Imagine not just reading about a buried Roman street, but being able to don a virtual reality headset and actually walk down it, hearing the sounds of the ancient city and seeing the frescoes on the walls in their original, vibrant colors, all from your living room on the other side of the globe. This isn't science fiction, it's the next frontier. Advanced three-dimensional scanning and photogrammetry are already allowing us to create hyper-realistic digital twins of entire sites. These virtual environments will become immersive classrooms and museums, granting access to fragile or inaccessible locations to anyone with an internet connection, democratizing the experience of history and preserving these spaces in perfect digital form long after the originals may have succumbed to the inevitable pressures of time. This spirit of democratization extends beyond just experiencing finds to actually participating in the process of discovery itself. Citizen science projects are poised to become a major force, leveraging the passion and collective brainpower of the public to achieve tasks that would overwhelm a small team of researchers. Enthusiasts could be tasked with sorting through thousands of aerial images to identify subtle crop marks indicating buried walls, or with transcribing digitized fragments of ancient papyri or ledgers. By crowdsourcing this work, archaeologists can accelerate their research exponentially while fostering a powerful sense of shared ownership and stewardship over local heritage. This collaborative model breaks down the traditional ivory tower, positioning the archaeologist not as a sole expert unlocking secrets for a passive audience, but as a facilitator guiding a community in uncovering its own history. Of course, this all happens within the pressing reality of relentless urban development. The cities of the future will be more densely populated and require ever more complex infrastructure, from expanded subway networks to deeper foundations for soaring skyscrapers. This makes the relationship between developers and archaeologists more critical than ever before. The old adversarial model, where archaeology was seen as a costly obstacle to progress, is gradually giving way to a new paradigm of preemptive collaboration. Forward-thinking cities are integrating archaeological assessments into the very earliest stages of urban planning, using the non-invasive technologies we discussed to map the underground heritage before blueprints are even drawn. This allows for creative solutions, designing a building's foundation pilings to avoid a critical ruin, or incorporating a discovered structure into the building's design as a public atrium or museum feature. This isn't about stopping progress, it's about weaving the past into the fabric of the future, creating richer, more meaningful urban landscapes that honor their own long history. Ultimately, the most exciting promise of this evolving field is that it will change our relationship with history from one of observation to one of connection. It's moving beyond simply finding things to understanding their context and sharing their stories in profoundly engaging new ways. We are on the cusp of a new golden age of discovery, not despite modern development, but because of the sophisticated tools and collaborative frameworks we are developing to navigate it. The future of urban archaeology is bright, inclusive, and digital, ensuring that the ghost cities beneath our feet are not lost to the future, but are instead brought to light and into the hearts and minds of generations to come. Now, let's turn that sense of wonder into a practical skill set. You might be walking over a lost world every single day and not even realize it. The clues are often hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with a curious eye to piece them together. It starts with the very names on the map. Take a close look at the place names in your town or county. Do any of them sound unusual or archaic? A name like Castle Hill, Temple Fields, or Roman Road isn't just poetic. It's often a direct echo from the past, a label that has stubbornly persisted for centuries, long after the castle, temple, or road itself vanished from view. In England, place names ending in Chester or Caster, like Winchester or Lancaster, almost always indicate a site built on old Roman fortifications, as the root comes from the Latin word castra, meaning camp. Similarly, a neighborhood known as Spring Hill might be referencing a long-lost water source that was crucial to an early settlement, giving you a hint about where its heart might have been. Beyond names, the very shape of the land can tell a story. Keep an eye out for unnatural-looking mounds or depressions in otherwise flat terrain. A large, rounded hillock in the middle of a farmer's field might not be a natural glacial feature. It could be a telltale tale. an artificial mound created by centuries of successive settlements building upon their own rubble. Conversely, a long, linear depression snaking through a modern park could be the ghost of an ancient defensive ditch or a filled-in moat that once surrounded a forgotten fort or manor house. Even the patterns of crop growth can be a clue. From the air, archaeologists often spot crop marks, where deeper, moisture-retentive soil filling an ancient ditch promotes lusher, greener plant growth, tracing out the outline of buried foundations invisible from the ground. While you might not have a plain, you can sometimes see subtle variations in grass color during a dry summer in a large field, hinting at what lies beneath. Never underestimate the power of local lore and old paperwork. Those stories your grandparents told about the old village that was submerged to create a reservoir, or the local legend about a haunted burial ground near the old oak tree, often contain kernels of historical truth. Dive into your local library or historical society archives and look for old maps, particularly ones from the 18th or 19th centuries. Comparing a map from 1850 to a modern satellite image can be revelatory. You might see a road that suddenly jogs for no reason. That odd kink could be where the modern builders had to divert around the buried wall of an unknown structure. A field that was once called the Abbey Meadows on an old map might now be a supermarket parking lot, pointing you directly to a potential site of interest. And of course, some of the greatest discoveries happen entirely by accident. If you ever see construction work happening in your town, especially groundworks for new foundations, utilities, or road expansions, pay attention to the soil being excavated. It's not uncommon for diggers to suddenly hit worked stone, layers of unusual dark soil packed with pottery fragments, or even ancient timbers preserved in wet ground. These accidental finds have led to some of the most significant urban archaeological discoveries. If you do spot something interesting poking out of a construction trench, the most important thing is to not disturb it yourself. Instead, take a picture, note the exact location, and contact your local university's archaeology department or a recognized historical society. They have the expertise to properly identify the find and, if significant, can work with the developers to ensure it's properly recorded and preserved. Your moment of curiosity could be the key that unlocks an entire new chapter of your town's hidden history, transforming you from a passive observer into an active participant in the great detective story of the past. While professional archaeologists bring essential expertise and technology to the table, the most powerful and enduring force protecting these buried cities often comes from the people who live directly above them. Local communities are the true guardians of this underground heritage, acting as its first line of defense, its most passionate advocates, and its most knowledgeable interpreters. Their deep, generational connection to the place transforms preservation from an academic exercise into a personal mission, ensuring that the history unearthed beneath their homes remains a living, breathing part of their community's identity, not just a relic to be studied and stored away. This grassroots stewardship often begins with something as simple as local knowledge, the kind that isn't written in any history book. An elderly resident might recall their grandfather talking about a strange, deep well in the backyard that was said to connect to old tunnels. A farmer plowing a field for generations might notice a consistent pattern of stones that surface every spring, hinting at foundations below. This intimate, place-based wisdom is an invaluable map guiding professional researchers to sites they might otherwise overlook. When a community values this knowledge and shares it, it can lead to incredible discoveries. In the town of Orvieto, Italy, perched high on a volcanic cliff, it was the locals who always knew there was more to their hill than met the eye. For centuries, they used cellars carved into the soft, tough rock for storing wine, occasionally finding strange, ancient artifacts. This persistent local curiosity eventually blossomed into a full-fledged, community-supported excavation, revealing an entire labyrinth of Etruscan caves, wells, and tunnels hidden beneath the medieval streets. Today, residents don't just allow this work, they actively participate, volunteering on digs and serving as tour guides, their personal pride fueling the preservation of their town's extraordinary Etruscan and medieval past. Beyond providing clues, communities are increasingly taking the lead through formal advocacy and citizen science initiatives. When a new development project threatens to pave over a potentially significant site, it is often local historical societies and concerned citizen groups who raise the alarm, petition local government, and fundraise for preliminary surveys. They are the ones who understand the irreplaceable value of what lies beneath their playgrounds, parks, and public squares. In many cases, this advocacy leads to the creation of community archaeology projects, where trained professionals work alongside volunteers from the community. This hands-on involvement is transformative. A shopkeeper or a school teacher who helps carefully brush soil away from a centuries-old cobblestone street develops a profound, personal connection to that discovery. They become not just observers of history, but active participants in its recovery, and that sense of ownership is the single greatest guarantee that the site will be protected for the long term. This collaborative model also ensures that the story told about a place is richer and more nuanced. While archaeologists can date artifacts and identify structures, it is the local community that holds the intangible heritage, the folk tales, the family histories, the traditional skills, and the oral histories that give color and soul to the stone and pottery. By involving them in the interpretation process, the narrative that emerges in museums and on information plaques is no longer a dry, academic account. It becomes a story woven from both scientific data and living memory, a tapestry that includes the experiences of all the people who have called that place home, from its ancient founders to its present-day residents. This creates a powerful sense of cultural continuity, allowing people to see themselves not as separate from the history under their feet, but as the latest chapter in a very long story. It fosters a deep, enduring pride that turns entire towns into vigilant guardians of their own heritage, ensuring that these ghost cities are not just preserved as static exhibits, but are continually woven into the cultural fabric of the community above. But the human imagination rarely leaves a vacuum unfilled, and the silent, empty spaces beneath our feet have always been a blank canvas for our deepest fears and wildest dreams. The physical reality of buried cities, with their dark passages and forgotten chambers, has directly inspired a rich tapestry of myths and legends that span the globe, blending slivers of historical truth with pure, unbridled imagination. These stories are far more than simple fiction. They are a form of cultural archaeology in their own right, revealing the anxieties, aspirations, and world view of the people who told them. When a society unearths a strange artifact or stumbles upon a mysterious tunnel with no clear origin, the absence of a scientific explanation invites a supernatural one, giving rise to tales of cursed tombs, hidden treasure guarded by spirits, and entire advanced civilizations thriving in the endless dark. Consider the powerful legend of Agartha, the mythical subterranean kingdom said to be hidden deep within the earth. This sprawling realm, often described as a paradise lit by an inner sun and inhabited by an advanced, peaceful race of beings, captured the European imagination in the 19th century. While pure fantasy, the concept feels strangely plausible precisely because of real-world discoveries like the multi-level city of Derenkuyu. The existence of such a massive, sophisticated, an entirely underground complex, proves that the idea of thousands of people living beneath the surface is not just possible, but a historical fact. Agatha takes that kernel of truth and expands it to a mythological scale, transforming practical refugee shelters into a legendary world of esoteric knowledge and lost wisdom, reflecting a deep human yearning for a hidden, perfect society untouched by the troubles of the surface world. On a more local, intimate level, nearly every region with a buried past has its own protective folklore. It is incredibly common to hear stories of ghosts, spirits, or spectral guardians said to watch over ancient ruins, often serving as a moral or cautionary tale. In Scotland, tales of fairy folk who dwell in ancient burial mounds or shea warn people against disturbing these sacred places. Across many cultures, stories persist of curses that befall those who rob tombs or desecrate old shrines. These narratives likely served a practical purpose long before modern archaeology. They were a form of protection. By making a site seem dangerous or taboo, these stories discouraged looting and vandalism, preserving the past through fear when laws and fences did not exist. A farmer less likely to plow through a strange mound if he believes it is the home of mischievous spirits, and a treasure hunter might think twice about digging if he fears a supernatural punishment. This intertwining of physical discovery and legendary narrative shows us that a city is never truly dead and buried. Even when concealed from sight, it continues to live on in the stories, superstitions, and collective memory of the people above it. The layers of stone and soil give rise to layers of meaning. Each generation adds its own interpretations, its own fears, and its own wonders to the hidden world below. This rich cultural tapestry ensures that these places remain active, powerful forces in our imagination long before a single archaeologist's trowel ever breaks the ground, reminding us that the most enduring discoveries are often not just what we find, but the stories we tell about what might be there. Now let's journey east along the ancient arteries of commerce to a region where the very sands seem to whisper secrets of forgotten opulence, the legendary Silk Road. This wasn't a single path, but a sprawling web of trade routes connecting the Far East with the Mediterranean, and along its length flourished some of history's most vibrant and cosmopolitan cities. Yet for many, their brilliance was fleeting. When the flow of goods and ideas shifted, these bustling metropolises didn't just decline. They were often utterly abandoned, swallowed by the encroaching deserts, their stories locked away in the dunes until modern explorers followed the legends back to their source. The lost cities of the Silk Road offer a unique case study in the rise and fall of urban centers, not through layered construction, but through sudden erasure and perfect preservation by the elements themselves. Consider the fabled city of Samarkand in modern-day Uzbekistan. For centuries, it was a jewel of the Silk Road, a place where Persian, Indian, and Chinese merchants mingled in bazaars overflowing with silk, spices, and gemstones. Its strategic location made it a prize for conquerors from Alexander the Great to Genghis Khan, and each left their mark, building upon the city's legacy. While Samarkand itself was never fully lost, its surrounding landscape is dotted with the ghosts of its contemporary cities that lacked its resilience and eventually succumbed to the desert. Their fate was often sealed by a combination of economic shifts and environmental change. As maritime trade routes became more reliable and profitable in the 15th and 16th centuries, the overland Silk Road began to wither. The caravans grew fewer, and the vast infrastructure that supported them, the caravanserais, the guard posts, the maintenance of oasis waterways, slowly fell into disrepair. Without the constant traffic and wealth, these cities became vulnerable. Then the desert delivered the final blow. In many regions, climate change, perhaps exacerbated by local deforestation and the collapse of irrigation systems, led to increased desertification. The same sands that had always surrounded these oasis cities began to advance, driven by the wind. Streets, homes, and temples were gradually buried under dunes, not by the slow accumulation of urban debris, but by a deliberate and relentless act of nature. This mode of preservation, while devastating for the inhabitants, was miraculous for archaeologists. The dry, sterile sand acted as a perfect desiccant, protecting organic materials that would have rotted away anywhere else. In these buried cities, excavators don't find just stone foundations. They discover wooden architectural beams, vibrant textiles, ancient documents written on paper and wood, and even the remains of food left behind in bowls, offering an incredibly intimate and complete snapshot of daily life frozen at the moment of abandonment. A stunning example of this is the ancient city of Nia, rediscovered in the Taklamakan Desert of western China. The Taklamakan's name translates ominously to place of no return, and for good reason. This vast, shifting sea of sand swallowed Nia whole, preserving it so completely that when early 20th century explorers like Aurel Stein arrived, they found a hauntingly beautiful ruin. Walking through the site, they encountered the wooden skeletons of houses still standing, their posts and beams defiant against the wind. Inside, they found carved furniture, intricate tapestries, and most importantly, hundreds of wooden tablets covered in a script known as Kharosthi. These documents, once translated, revealed the mundane yet fascinating details of life in this prosperous oasis town 2,000 years ago. Legal disputes over land, instructions for managing crops, and worried letters about the security of trade caravans. The artifacts told a story of a sophisticated, multicultural society that was a melting pot of Indian, Persian, Central Asian, and Chinese influences, all thriving in what is now one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. The true power of these Silk Road excavations lies in the artifacts that testify to an astonishing level of globalization long before the term even existed. Digging in the ruins of a modest merchant's home in a place like Bukhara, you might find a cache of coins from the Roman Empire, a fragment of delicate Chinese silk, a glass bowl manufactured in Egypt, and a statuette of the Buddha carved in a distinctly Greek style, a legacy of Alexander the Great's campaigns. This wasn't just trade in goods, it was a constant, vibrant exchange of ideas, religions, and artistic styles. Buddhism traveled from India to China along these routes, Zoroastrianism spread from Persia, and later, Islam would sweep through the region, all leaving their mark on the art and architecture of these hub cities. The layered ruins of a Silk Road city don't just show different time periods of one culture, they show the physical accumulation of countless cultures, all drawn together by the magnetic pull of commerce and curiosity. Ultimately, the lost cities of the Silk Road stand as a powerful testament to the fragility of even the most powerful networks. Their ruins remind us that globalization is not a modern invention, but an ancient rhythm that has pulsed through human history, with its own periods of intense connection and painful disconnect. These ghost cities preserved in sand are monuments to a world that was deeply interconnected, where a decision made by an emperor in China could ripple through the markets of Persia, and where a shift in trade winds could literally determine whether a city lived or died. They teach us that the forces of economics and environment are inextricably linked, and that the greatest human achievements can be both built up and buried by the same vast, impersonal currents of history. But to truly understand why a city like Ephesus was gently smothered in silt while Pompeii was frozen in volcanic ash, we need to look beyond the human story and delve into the very earth itself. This is where the separate disciplines of geology and archaeology converge, forming a powerful partnership that reads the history of a site not just through its artifacts, but through the soil and stone that encase them. Think of it as a detective story where one expert analyzes the clues left by people, while the other deciphers the clues left by the planet, and only by working together can they solve the complete mystery of a buried city. A geologist walking onto an archaeological site sees a different landscape than an archaeologist. Where one might see a layer of dark, compacted soil, the archaeologist sees an ancient trash midden filled with pottery shards and animal bones, evidence of daily life. The geologist looks at that same layer and can determine its origin. Was it laid down by a slow, seasonal flooding of a nearby river, indicating a period of climatic stability? Or is it a chaotic jumble of different soil types, suggesting a catastrophic single event like a mudslide or a tsunami? This distinction is absolutely critical. It tells us not just what happened, but how it happened. For example, at the Bronze Age site of Akrotiri on the Greek island of Santorini, it was geological analysis of the immense layers of volcanic pumice and ash that proved the settlement was destroyed by a single, colossal eruption of the Thera volcano, not by a gradual abandonment or a human conflict. This geological context frames the entire archaeological interpretation, turning the site from a simple ruin into a poignant time capsule of a society interrupted in an instant. This collaboration is perhaps most vital in the complex science of dating. While archaeologists have tools like radiocarbon dating for organic materials, these often give a date for the object itself, not necessarily for the geological event that buried it. This is where volcanic ash becomes a geological super sleuth. A major volcanic eruption spews a unique chemical fingerprint of ash and minerals across a vast region, creating a synchronous layer everywhere it falls. Geologists can identify this specific signature, and since the eruption is a well-documented historical event, it provides an absolutely precise date. Any archaeological layer below this ash layer must be older than the eruption. Anything above it must be younger. This method, known as tephrochronology, is like inserting a permanent time stamp into the soil column, allowing researchers to correlate and date layers across different sites with incredible accuracy, building a reliable chronological framework for an entire region. Furthermore, this interdisciplinary approach helps answer the grandest of questions. Why did people settle here in the first place, and why was this place ultimately abandoned? The answer almost always lies in geology. A city like Rome was founded where it was because of its strategic hills and the Tiber River, but also because of the local volcanic stone, tuff, which was soft enough to be quarried easily for building yet hardened on exposure to air, providing perfect construction material. Conversely, the very success of a city could plant the seeds of its own burial. The deforestation of hillsides to fuel the furnaces and build the growing city of Ephesus likely increased soil erosion, causing the nearby Casta River to silt up its own harbor faster. Geology provides the environmental backstory, revealing how a choice as simple as where to quarry stone or how much timber to harvest could set in motion natural processes that would, centuries later, lead to a city's decline and eventual disappearance under the very land it helped to create. It's a powerful reminder that human history and natural history are not separate narratives. They are deeply intertwined, written together in the layers beneath our feet. And so, as we've journeyed from the inverted metropolises of Cappadocia to the silt-sealed ruins of the Silk Road, a profound truth comes into focus. These ghost cities are far more than mere archaeological curiosities or static exhibits from a bygone era. They are a powerful physical testament to humanity's most enduring traits, our relentless adaptability, our profound connection to place, and our innate drive to build upon the foundations of those who came before us, literally and figuratively. We are a species of layers, constantly writing and rewriting our story on the same precious patches of earth, each generation adding its own chapter to a sprawling, vertical manuscript of human experience. This hidden history fundamentally challenges the way we perceive our modern urban landscapes. We tend to see our cities as finished products, as concrete and steel monuments to the present moment. But the reality is so much richer. That sleek glass skyscraper doesn't just stand on bedrock, it stands upon the packed earth floors of a Victorian factory, the mosaic courtyard of a Roman villa, the sacred fire pit of an Iron Age chieftain. Our urban environments are not static. They are living, breathing museums, their most magnificent galleries hidden from view, waiting just beneath the sidewalk for a construction project or a ground-penetrating radar scan to reveal their next exhibit. Every street corner, every public square, every quiet neighborhood rests upon a palimpsest of centuries of human drama, innovation, and daily life. The relentless march of technology, from LiDAR's laser eyes to AI's pattern-recognizing mind, is granting us an unprecedented ability to read this buried text without even turning a page. With each new discovery, we gain more than just knowledge of ancient trade routes or forgotten architectural techniques. We gain something far more valuable: perspective. Peering into these hidden worlds allows us to see our own moment in time not as the apex of history, but as a single thread in a vast, intricate tapestry. It humbles us, reminding us that the empires we see as permanent are often just the most recent layer, and that the challenges we face, from climate shifts to societal transformation, are chapters in a much longer story of human resilience. This perspective is not meant to diminish our modern achievements, but to connect us to the grand, ongoing human project. It invites us to walk through our own cities with a new sense of wonder and curiosity, to understand that the ground beneath our feet is the ultimate archive. So the next time you're waiting for a bus, strolling through a park, or simply walking down a familiar street, take a moment to pause and consider what lies below. That slight hump in the pavement, that oddly aligned street, the name of your neighborhood, they might all be clues. You are not just moving through space, you are traveling through time, walking over the wonders and whispers of countless lives that have shaped the world you know today. If this journey through the hidden layers beneath our feet has sparked your curiosity, I'd be incredibly grateful if you'd show the video a thumbs up. It truly helps others discover this channel and join our explorations into history's greatest puzzles. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss our next adventure into the forgotten corners of our world. I'd also love to hear from you down in the comments. After learning about all of this, does your own city or town feel a little different? Have you ever noticed a strange mound in a field, an oddly placed street, or maybe even heard a local legend about tunnels or lost ruins? Your personal stories and observations are fascinating, and they help build a community of curious minds, all looking a little closer at the ground beneath them. Make sure to tap that bell icon too, so YouTube lets you know the moment our next video goes live. There are so many more mysteries waiting just around the corner, and I can't wait to share them with you. Thank you so much for watching and for your time today. Until our next exploration, stay curious.